That applies mainly to you, John.
Yeah, I know. It's all right.
Okay, so can everyone see that okay?
Yeah.
Blue
Right.
eyes.
Okay, well, I'll kick off then. So a few weeks back, I suggested to Colin and Peter that maybe members should initiate a series of talks entitled My Favorite ... And this is my contribution to that effort. So my favorite editing tool is the tone curve. Now, you might think that's rather geeky to have a favorite editing tool, bizarre perhaps to admire a tone curve, but I do. But I do, and it's my job, and I know it's a hard job to convince you lot to all feel the same way by the end. Now, in my defense, I'm not alone, actually. I'm not as mad as I sound. I know that there are some experienced photographers who swear by tone curves. There are some that only use tone curves in their editing. I don't go that far, but I think it's pretty awesome, and I hope to show that. Now, I think it was demonstrated clearly last week that some people find tone curves confusing and intimidating. And my talk is really aimed at those people. Also, as shown last week, it's clear that some people in the Camera Club are real experts in the subject, and of course, I'll find it much harder to teach them anything, if at all. But we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to use Affinity's tone curve. Now, it's not quite the same as Photoshop's. Photoshop has one or two extra features, but the essence of it, the principles, the ideas that I want to impart are really going to be the same between the two tools. So just to kick off, I'd like to just touch on the humble histogram. So can you see my mouse pointer up in the top right-hand corner here? Yeah. Okay, so we had a talk on the histogram not so long ago, and this is just a graph, isn't it, that says how common pixels of different tones are, from the dark tones down here to the light tones up here, and you have the mid-tones in the middle. This particular photo has got no true blacks. There's nothing down right at the extreme left, and it's got no true whites. There's nothing at the extreme right. Now notice that we have the same tone curve. In the tone curve, we have the same histogram as we have over here. And note also, and this was alluded to by some senior members last week, it's not actually one histogram that we have, it's several. And that's because, of course, color is represented by red, blue, and green pixels, and you can have a histogram for each one. So at the moment it's showing all channels, but I can just show the red pixels. And then I have the histogram for the red pixels, and I have the dark ones on the left, and I have the light ones on the right. And I could do the same with the other channels, as you can see from the drop-down box. And I can do the same with the tone curve. So I can also pull up an individual channel and its histogram. Now, most of the time when we're editing with curves and perhaps with other editing tools, we're editing all channels combined, which in Affinity is called the master. But you do have the potential, if you want, to edit the individual channels as well in curves and other things. And I'll just touch on that a little bit later. So what is a tone curve? Well, just think of it as an easy way of manipulating the light and dark shades. Just a way of making some bits a bit lighter and some bits a bit darker. Now, the curve has this diagonal line. It looks a bit strange to begin with. You wonder what that's all about until you get the hang of it. But I'd like to put it this way. If you want to change lots of things in editing, you use a slider. Here, instead of using a slider, you're using a line which you can curve and bend. And once you start manipulating this line, you at will, you can change the tonal pattern in the photograph. Now, most beginners are given a formula for how to bend this line. They're told you pull this bit down and you pull this bit up, and hey presto, you've increased the contrast of the photograph. And that is called an S-shaped curve because it's a bit like a very flat S on its side like that. Now, beginners' videos often stop at this point, and if you want, you can stop there too. You can just follow that and you'll get nice contrasty pictures. But there's an awful lot more to tone curves than that. And I think if you've got a little orientation, if you've got a little understanding of what's going on, you can go an awful lot further. And the first idea to grasp is that this point down here, I'm pointing to the bottom left-hand corner. This point here is called a node, and it represents true black. And this node in the top right-hand corner represents true white. And then we've got some midtones in between. So it's a bit like the histogram. It's dark on the left. It's light on the right. But unlike the histogram, it's also dark at the bottom and bright at the top. And this is actually a critical difference. It's actually the main thing that the histogram is based on, the idea that as you go up, things get lighter. So how do we make use of it? Well, I'd like just to play around for a moment with these nodes, just to give you a sort of feel of what's going on if you're not sure. And it's actually easiest to do this to begin with, not with a picture like this, but with a simplified form, a tone strip. And this tone strip here then goes from pure black on the left to pure white on the right. And we've got all the midtones in between going from dark to light midtones. Now, if I now take this pure black node down here on the left, and I want you to look here at the pure black here, the left-hand side of my tone curve, which is of my tone strip, which is what this black point represents. And remember, it's light, it's darker at the bottom, lighter at the top. If I start pulling it up, that black becomes a dark gray. Actually, everything else moves up a bit too, because the curve is kind of following where I'm going. But as I move it up again, that dark gray becomes a mid gray, then it becomes a light gray, and eventually it becomes a white. Now let's start again and pull the other node down. So we're beginning with pure white, lighter at the top, darker at the bottom. I pull it down. This box that was pure white is now light gray. Now it's mid gray. Now it's dark gray. Now it's black. Let's now take this node and this left-hand node, and I want you to watch the left-hand side here, and I'm going to pull it along to the right-hand side. And what's happening then is that all the tones that were dark gray have now become black. Everything to the left of this node has become black. And if I do the same on the top, if I pull the white in like that, on this side, tones that were light gray have now become pure white. So what's really happening is this is another variation of dark on the bottom, light on the top. When we do that, we're actually taking this point, this 25% gray point on the red line, and we're pulling it down, and then we're making it everything dark. And when we do this, we're basically taking this 75% or 25% gray point here, and we're pulling it, and we're making it light. So dark at the bottom, light at the top. Now, if you think about it, we also have here two editing tools that go by other names. So if I adjust my black point like that, and I adjust my white point like that, that's what we do when we make a levels adjustment. It really is a levels adjustment. And some people say actually that a tone curve is levels on steroids, because of course you can adjust your midtones by pulling the line in the middle as well. Now, the other thing to notice is that in steepening this diagonal line, what we've done is we've gone from pure black to pure white not in 9 steps as I had originally, but many fewer. I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 steps. And of course that's increased the contrast over the steep part of the line. And that's what's happening with an S-shaped curve. It's simply that you're making the line steeper when over the midtones of your picture, over the tones that are covered by the steep line. So there we are. We have 2 simple rules now: darker at the bottom, lighter at the top, steeper equals contrast. And we have 2 editing tools. Now, I'm going to do something a little bit different then. I'm going to take the middle of the tone curve and I'm going to pull it up. And remember, lighter at the top, darker at the bottom, and indeed it all becomes lighter. But because I haven't moved my pure black node, and I haven't moved my pure white node, the ends here, the pure blacks and the pure whites remain the same. And that's what we do when we use a brightness control in our editing. And now I'm just going to pull it down, and darker at the top, lighter at the top, darker at the bottom. Again, everything gets darker, but it's the mid-tones that change. We haven't moved the black point. We haven't moved the white point. So that's a brightness control. Now, okay, one more thing. I'm going to pull this up to a mid, so that's now a sort of dark gray instead of pure black. And I'm going to make this line parallel to the original. Now what I've done is I've made everything brighter by a similar amount. And that's what we mean when we increase exposure. And I could, of course, put the line parallel further down like this. And everything has got darker, and that's what we do when we reduce exposure. So I've shown you so far now that this single tool is not one tool, it's many tools. It's levels, it's contrast, it's brightness, it's exposure. It is also, you can also get adjustments to your highlights and your shadows. It's a bit harder to do, actually, and I can demonstrate that. First of all, by showing you what happens when you make a shadows or highlights adjustment. So if I pull up the highlights here, what's happening is that only the light tones are getting lighter. The dark tones are being protected. And I could do the same thing with curves. What I really need to do then is to make this bit lighter and keep this bit the same. And it's a little fiddly, because if I kind of anchor this bottom bit, and I move this bit, this bit moves as well, which is a bit annoying. But you can drag it back. You can get it back to where it is, and what you have then effectively is a shadows or highlights adjustment within the tone curve. Now there is an easier way of doing it, and I don't know whether Photoshop's exactly the same, but down here you have two numbers, 0 and 1, and the 0 represents black and the 1 represents white. So halfway between them represents mid-gray, and that is 0.5. So what you could do is you can set the range here that the tone curve will affect. And if I set the sort of minimum for the tone curve at 0.5, that's to say the mid-gray, I'm really telling it to only alter the tone curve in this part. And now I get exactly the same as the highlights and shadows slider. I've made my whites white. I haven't changed my dark tones at all. So I've now shown you that tones is not 1, but 5 editing controls, and it goes further. So far, we've only really manipulated the all channels combined. Let's see what happens if we start to manipulate the red channel. So I take the midpoint and I pull it up and I add red. But because I haven't altered the black point and I haven't altered the white point, they stay the same. I just get reds in the midtones. What happens if I pull it down? Well, this could be a pub quiz question, couldn't it? Mm. You get the complementary color to red, which is cyan, and what that is actually is an absence of red. So what we have here is not a red tone curve. We have, in effect, a red cyan tone curve, redder at the top, cyan at the bottom. Or the simple rule here, when you're editing individual channels, is you can get more of the color or more of the absence of the color, if you like, more of its complement. So red or cyan. And it's the same with the other channels. So I can get more green, or I can get and I can get more of its complement, which is magenta. Or I can go to the blue channel and I can get more blue, or I can get its the complementary color, which is yellow. The beauty of this, though, is I get to decide where to inject these colors. Perhaps I only want them in the midtones, leaving the blacks and the whites as they are. Perhaps I want my reds only in the highlights. I can do it like that. Perhaps I only want my reds in the shadows. I could do it like that. Or perhaps I want two colors. Perhaps I want cyan in my shadows and red in my highlights. So what I've demonstrated here now is that this amazing tool also allows you to alter color balance, white balance, to do split toning. All of these things are hidden within curves. So I hope you followed what I've said. It's really, if not, just remember 2 or 3 simple rules: lighter at the top, darker at the bottom, steeper equals contrast, and you can make these color tone manipulations too. Now, that's all very theoretical. Let's look at a real picture. It really is surprisingly easy to use in practice, and I really do encourage people who are not using tone curves just to play around with it. I think you'll learn very, very quickly. So let's say you want to make a levels adjustment. I could do that and that, and I've done my levels adjustment. Let's say that I want to add contrast. I've shown you before, I just do that, and I've added contrast. Let's say I want to darken my picture in the mid-tones. I've done it. Let's say I want to brighten my picture in the mid-tones. I've done it. Let's say that I want to reduce the exposure. I've done it. Let's say that I want to tint my shadows with a bit of cyan. I've done it. Let's say that I want to split tone this picture, so I want a bit of red in my highlights. I've done it. It really is pretty easy when you start playing around with it, but very, very powerful. Now, what really amazed me when I got to this stage was to discover that there are yet other things you can do. So at the moment, we're only using RGB color space, as denoted by the RGB here in this drop-down box. But if I change to grayscale, nothing happens to begin with, but as soon as I move my slider, I get black and white. And of course, I can make quite a nice black and white now. I can add a bit of punch, a bit of contrast by steepening my curve. And I've really made quite a nice black and white conversion very, very quickly and easily. Let's take another picture. Okay, not a bad picture of a statue. The leaves are terrible, aren't they? Really distracting. Let's make them darker. So I could just make them darker by dragging down my tone curve. But at the moment, I'm kind of guessing where to put that node and what to do. There's a feature in Affinity. It's just the same in Photoshop. It just goes by a different name. You can actually pick the tone that you want to alter. So I click on the picker. I get some crosshairs. Can you see that my mouse pointer is not a mouse pointer, but like a crosshairs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, you hover over the leaf that you're interested in, say, and now I need to click on the left. Click on the left of my mouse and hold it down and move it. And if I move down, it gets darker. I move up, it gets lighter. And notice on the right-hand side there, it's added a node to the tone curve, just where the picker is, whatever the tone was I picked. And it's moving the tone curve up or down in lockstep with my mouse. So I can bring the leaves down like that. I can then pick again, and I can make the statue a bit brighter. And hey presto, pretty easy. Now, the beauty of this goes further, because we're working just with an adjustment layer, aren't we? And all adjustment layers can be applied selectively. You can apply masks to them. So, you just need to, if you're not confident with that, and I know most people are, but if you're not confident with that, it's just the normal rules of masks that you need to apply at this point. So I don't like the remaining red leaves, the highlights of these leaves in my picture. I could use a clone tool. I could use a healing brush. I could dodge and burn, but I can also get rid of them by using a tone curve. So let me add now a second tone curve. Let me just now make everything black. Okay. Now, at the moment, my tone curve, I've got a, you remember that white reveals and black conceals. So all of the effect of this tone curve is visible on top. What I need to do is just to turn that, to invert that, the inherent mask in that tone curve so that it becomes black. And I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut in Affinity that's the same as in Photoshop, Control-I. So that mask now is a black mask, and I can get the effect of that tone curve back just by painting with a white paintbrush So white reveals, black conceals. So I take my paintbrush, I make sure I've got white, I make sure the opacity is high, make my brush a bit bigger, and then I'll just paint away these leaves that I don't want. And I'll be careless if I do it too quickly, but you get the idea. It's not that difficult. And in fact, then I do this quite often with pictures. So, for example, skies are often lighter, aren't they, than the land. And I don't use a graduated filter, but if I did, it would be a bit difficult to apply to this shape. So easier here would be that I get my picker, I make things a bit darker. And if I feel that I've gone too far in the foreground, I would just, because I've got a white mask on here, I take a black paintbrush, make sure black's in the front, and I paint out the effect in the foreground. So it's terribly quick and easy to do something like this. I use it rather like other people use dodge and burn, I'm afraid. Of course, you can also apply your curves, your curve adjustment a bit more precisely if you make a precise selection. So let's turn this this girl's eyes green. So we need to get a selection brush. We need to select the eyes. So I've got a bit too much there, which I'll get rid of. So when I now apply a curves adjustment, it will only be to the selected area. So I call up my curves. I change my channel to green, and I make the eyes green. So before and after. So it's really as easy as that. And it's surprisingly quick and surprisingly effective. So here's the pitch, ladies and gentlemen. This single tool, this amazing single tool, has allowed me in front of your eyes to change levels, contrast, brightness, exposure, shadows and highlights. It's allowed me to mess around with colors, do split toning, make a passable black and white conversion. I'm even using it for dodging and burning. And I can apply it to the whole image, or I can apply it to a selection. And that could be an exact selection, or it could be a very crude one where I just quickly paint with a brush. So I'm not suggesting, of course, that you abandon all the other tools. They may work for you, they may be very familiar to you, they may be more convenient, they may be simpler. I think that's fine, but I would like you to understand, to appreciate that these are really repackagings of a basic editing process, and that it's not that difficult to understand. It's not a black box. It's something that you can actually control for yourselves. Now, last week, Colin Leach referred to one advantage of curves. He said you can inject more contrast with curves than you can with a contrast slider. I think that's just because you decide how steep that line is going to be. Whereas if you allow Photoshop or Affinity to decide, they set the range in the contrast slider. But you can go further. You have control. Another advantage of the tone curve is that it's everywhere. So you find it in most editing software, even in free packages. You find it on mobile phones. Whether other controls are there or not, the tone curve is widely available. So I find it incredibly useful these days because I'm used to it, because I've played with it. I do a lot of my editing just using tone curves. I find it quick, I find it easy, I find it convenient to focus on one tool, to problem solve, just thinking about using one tool. So that's my pitch, and that's why I commend it to you. So I finish at that point, Peter.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you, Keith.
Very good.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Keith.
Very good.
Thank you very much. I thought that was really informative.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, excellent.
Very
Keith.
good.
I've been using it a bit more, Keith.
You have?
Yeah, I've started using curves a bit more
Yes.
since
Yeah.
I've had Infinity.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as I say, I would encourage people to play with it, not to feel it's a black box. It is a bit funny if you just let those nodes go anywhere. Quite often, you kind of move them accidentally, and
yeah.
if you get them in the wrong direction, you can get funny colours on your screen. You think, "Oh my God, what have I done?" But it's really not that difficult. It
Especially
really
if you've got a
isn't.
shaky hand.
Well, yes. Yes. Yeah. So I don't know. Are there any comments? Are there any questions that I could help with while I'm still screen sharing?
Now, I think the thing with curves, you need to do it gently, don't you? You don't need
You
big.
do.
You've got to do, as you
Small
show an
adjustments.
S shape. You keep your movements down and not go
Yeah.
too wild with it.
Yeah, you're right. The other thing I didn't perhaps mention is, of course, you can add these extra nodes and it's called curves because as you move a node up, then the line follows and it makes a curve. Now, if you have two of those nodes very close together accidentally, then it makes quite a sharp change of direction, and that's when the funny colors and effects come in. So if your curves are out of control, you've probably done something daft like that, but really it's not a difficult thing.
Anybody else got any queries?
I'd never, although I've done it the way you described, I'd never actually put together the business about left to right is from black to white and bottom to top is from dark to light.
Yeah.
So that was completely new to me.
I think it as long as you think in that kind of way, the whole thing falls into place, doesn't it?
Yeah, another way that I've been thinking about it, which might add to that, because that is excellent, I was really pleased with that, is that across the bottom is what the input to the view is.
Yeah.
And top to bottom, in other words, the side, is what you'll get out of it. So the bottom is input and the side is output. And that, of course, now makes sense when you say,
yeah.
Well, my bottom goes from black to white. My
Yeah.
side goes from whatever I started at and finish it at.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's good. I
Thought
like it.
provoking.
That was a point I was going to make, that the horizontal is the input and the vertical is the output. It's an easy way to think about it.
Yeah. So, as I said, not a black box. It's actually something that we could, we can understand, and you can do things. People are a lot more creative than me do other things with curves. So, for example, I'm inclined to sort of, I like to have a pure black in my picture. I like to have a pure white. But other people think, well, oh no, this is a misty scene. I want grays. I want a lack of contrast. And then they adjust their curves accordingly. People who are a lot more creative than me are very good at tinting, at using editing the three color channels to get exactly the effects they want, exactly where they want them. So it's a tremendous tool, but at its essence, the principles are not complicated.
There's another one, just in passing. I think Ray had a question, but I'm going first. If you actually reverse the positions of the endpoints, you get a negative. Might demonstrate that, Keith.
So let's have a look. So I'm not quite sure what you're saying.
A photo would be better.
Oh, you'd like to have that one at the top and that one at the bottom.
And
Oh, right.
the other
Okay.
at the
Let's do it
bottom.
with a photo then. So I'll reset that. So you're suggesting that I go up there. Oh, Sorry, this one is still on her
You've
eyes.
got the eyes. Yeah.
It's
That's
Halloween.
Quite
That's
scary.
pretty scary for Halloween, isn't it? Let me start again. I'll put a new curves on. So Terry, are you saying take this one up and put that one down?
And there you'll have a negative.
And then so that's what happens when you invert your image, isn't it? Exactly. Right. Okay. Thank you. That's another one.
If you had a negative, it would turn it into a positive.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Can
And
sorry. Can I just
right,
ask, is this something that you'd use to edit, like to make something high tone or low tone?
absolutely, you could. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
How would you
So-
do that then?
Well, now you're asking someone who never makes high tone images, but I imagine, that you probably you make your picture more exposed like that, and then probably you add a second curve, and maybe you kind of add a little bit of contrast in it. So you actually want, with a high tone image, I think basically the picture is very light, isn't it? But you still want some of your darks to show.
Mm-hmm.
But you're asking the wrong person. I don't do high tone, low tone. But I'm sure you'd find that there's a video that would tell you how to do that with curves. It's a curves job, isn't it?
All right. Okay. Interesting.
Ray, did you have a question?
Ray had.
I'm just going to say what the alpha channel was, Keith. I wasn't sure.
Oh, I'm not sure about that either, Ray.
It's transparency.
It is transparency, but I just don't know how you use it. So if we look at the drop down, you've got red, green, blue, and alpha is transparency. So I think I could make the dark tones transparent. Actually, I'm not quite sure how I do that.
You haven't got any.
I think it works on a mask, doesn't it?
Transparent in the image. Well, no. If you put a mask and merge the mask with the image, so the original has some transparent areas.
Okay.
I'm not sure there's much of a practical use for that, but.
Yeah. Okay. And then I merge those.
No. You have to scribble. You have to scribble something on the mask, I think, first. To have anything to work with.
Okay, Ray, I don't think it's something you're going to use very often.
But,
why don't we stop at that?
Yeah, I think that's one that isn't in Photoshop, to be honest.
Because I'm keen not to confuse people at the end of this. I want them to feel confident about it. One thing I didn't mention was blend modes. So actually, of course, you can use your curves adjustment with a blend mode like other things. And I don't know whether Photoshop is the same, but it's a bit funny in Affinity. What effectively it does is it says in this curves adjustment that it has all the information of the base layer. So if you just change your blend mode to multiply, that hasn't worked. I'm on the wrong layer. Sorry, start again. If you're on the curves layer, if I change the blend mode to multiply, I get the same as if I duplicated the background and changed the pixel layer to multiply. And I don't know why that is, but it does mean then that you can. That's interesting. And I didn't know it had a line like that either. But it does mean you can start adjusting the curves of a more edited and more complex version. So anyway, you can use curves with blend modes. You can also use the picker that I showed you. You can use the picker on with color channels as well. So you could kind of pick a green and make the green more intense by pulling it, or brighter by pulling it up, and so on.
Brilliant. I was just saying that I put in the chat, guys, it's useful. I was chatting to Keith slightly about it earlier. There's a little complementary colors guide Adobe use. I think it's quite handy because I was playing about with gradient maps and how to complement colors. So yeah, it's in the chat anyway if it's useful.
Okay, any more questions, folks?
That's brilliant.
No, not from me. Thank you very much.
No,
Right, well, if anyone does have questions subsequently, I'd be happy to try and answer them if I can, or if not, I'll refer them to the experts in the group. Someone will know, I'm sure.
There's another one you could show called solarization, where you make the curve sort of like an inverted V.
Right, okay.
And that's something you used to be able to do in the darkroom.
Right.
Sort of half.
Well,
through
I'll show one then, Terry, in that case. You can also do, so I've got an adjustment called threshold. So threshold is like a levels where you've only got black and you've only got white. And you get to decide where you put that. Okay, but threshold again can be done with curves, can't it? So all you have to do is probably I might do it with a grayscale because that would be easiest. It is kind of make one thing very dark and make one thing very light, and you get, that's thresholds, isn't it? So, so I don't know whether it's not all editing tools, but there are an awful lot of editing tools that you can simulate if you understand about curves, and there are a lot of quite subtle and nice things you can do with pictures.
Let me just turn off the microphone. I'm on a camera.
Okay, we all done?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keith. That was brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Keith.
Thanks,
That's
Keith.
very good.
Very good,
Okay.
Keith.
So if anybody else wants to volunteer to do a presentation on their favourite whatever, Paul,
Learn something before we can do that.
eh?
Yeah.
You got to what? Learn something.
It didn't have to be very clever, I don't think. It could be, my favourite place to take photographs, or, anything that you think the group would be interested in. My favourite camera, my favourite website, it could be anything really. My favourite photographic technique. I like to take landscapes, and this is, I know a bit about landscapes. For 2 minutes, I'll tell you about landscapes. It doesn't have to be, really clever.
No. So volunteers, not on a postcard, on an email. Yes, Roy.
Well, you sent me an email earlier and said, will I give my little talk next week?
Yeah.
In principle, I think I need to know how to drive all this.
Yeah. Okay.
But perhaps we can get together during the week and sort it out.
Later in the week, I'll give you a call and we could arrange and do a dummy run on a Zoom meeting.
Okay, I'll find the dummy.
Hey, yeah.
Something that would be really useful,
I think Kerry's got his hand up for the dummy.
Kerry's got his hand up. He'd like to go to the toilet.
I'd like to volunteer for the dummy.
It's funny you should say that.
Yeah, put your thumb in your mouth.
We were going to try and find a volunteer to ring you up and ask you. Okay. Right. The other thing we were going to do tonight was triptychs. Now, let me just share my screen. No. No. Have I got my Photoshop up there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Triptych screen.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't know if you want me to go through piece by piece of how I produce that.
Yes, please.
Just a second. I'm halfway through the sentence. Or if you would, because what I was going to do was send this out, if you want it, on the email so you can use it. Yeah?
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can go through and show you the boring bit of how I set it up. Basically, I just opened a new document, got it in to be landscape, and then just bear with me a sec, because yeah, that was it. And then just drew the 3 triangles on there individually, and turn them into clipping masks. Okay, where it says create clipping mask, and that then gives you those 3 different panels. Down on, you can see on the right, can you see my layers box?
Yep.
Middle panel, right panel, left panel. So that was just, I just named them so that obviously left, right, and middle. And then what I've got is I've imported the pictures I want to put into that picture. I've brought them into my library here on the right. Can you see them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. So what you do is you hold the Alt key and just drag it across to the box. So I'm on the left panel, so go over there, and that drops it into there, and then Control T, and then expand it to fit the box. Now, obviously, as you can see, one issue you may have is the fact that on this template they're very narrow boxes. So you've got to be thinking about what pictures you're going to use in which box, because obviously you can see that all I've done is I've just basically picked 3 pictures I had which were portrait, and we're going to put them in. But I'll just show you what you can, or it's entirely up to you what you do. So that's that, and so you just do that with your 3 different panels, just dragging in the pictures that you want to use. Right, don't do that. So then pick the right panel and drag a picture over the right panel. I'll tell you what, I'll now use the right key. And so it's a case of...
Is that the right key because it was the right panel?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I haven't got a left key on my keyboard.
No, so just a case of bringing those in over to the over above the box that you want to put them in.
Did you have to change the sizes of them at all then, Pete?
Well, like I was saying, what you're going to need to do is bring yourself, make yourself the pictures the size that you think you're going to want to use in the box shapes. But what I did, I've done, that gives you an idea of what you can do with the template. But I've got one that I did earlier, and what I did was I made the actual canvas size a bit bigger so that you can get the pictures in. And then I've basically dragged those across. Okay, and now you've still got the issue where the picture doesn't really match the frame. So what you need to do is get on your right panel. So highlight the right panel, Control and T, and then make that panel fit the picture. So unless you've actually produced your photos to go inside the template, you're gonna have little bits. You're gonna have some bits over. But what I've done, yeah, go on, Terry.
So I was going to say that isn't clipping yet, though, is it?
No, not yet. No, I'm just coming to that.
You have to. Oh, okay.
Yeah, won't be a sec. So I'm just showing that. Yeah, you can get your. You want to basically get your pictures produced to be the size of what you want to use. I've just picked 3 pictures at random just to show you how I've done it. Right, and then what you clip it by hovering. So what I've done, you've got the 3 pictures I've imported showing above each. So the middle panel's there, yeah, and there's the picture above. You hover the pointer between the 2, and what have I got to do? I did it about 4 days ago and I can't remember what I did.
Alt click.
Alt, isn't it? Okay.
I think you can't really see on that one, can you? Whether you can't really see on that one. You should. The woodpecker one was bigger than the panel, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, wait a minute. I'm not on the right panel, am I? Just wait a second. Let me just go back a sec. Right. So if I go to the middle panel, hover over, click that to that, and it hasn't worked. Why hasn't that worked?
That's what, yeah.
That one has.
That worked.
Yeah. And that one worked.
Yeah, no, the middle one has worked. It's just the picture wasn't bigger than the panel.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. So that's
if you resize the picture, it'll be constrained within the panel now. Or picture, not the panel.
Yeah. Well, I could do either, couldn't I? That just shows you how.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah.
Excuse my ignorance, but
that's okay.
Why don't you just take a new layer and then just put your 3 films on there?
Yeah, you can if you want.
That's an easier way of doing it, surely.
Well, whichever you prefer. This way, you can, like I'm just doing now, with clipping the picture to the mask. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it allows you to play around with it, but if you might have a picture that's bigger than the mask, and so when you clip it, that bit will disappear. Let me just.
Yeah, but you can adjust the picture in any case, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
But you actually can't. If you want 3 panels the same, you can do it with the mask, and it will clip your picture to the aspect ratio of the mask.
Yeah.
So that's the real advantage, rather than just having 3. And when I did it, I just created 3 mask layers, not clipping masks, but it's the same difference, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I dragged the mask layer. I dropped the picture onto the frame and then dragged the mask layer onto that layer to apply it. So a template was just a background of 3 masks.
Yeah. So you got the template I've made there, and ideally, although you don't have to, I mean, the choice when you produce these triptychs, the choice is yours whether the panels are all the same size or not. They don't have to be, but obviously, I think aesthetically they do look better if all 3 pictures are the same shape and size. The other thing you do then is, because obviously, I mean, if you were to print that, it would print the hatchings, the black and white squares would print white, but obviously to display them, you need to add a layer that I've added a layer here, which is red, which just gives you, which you uses the background, but you just produce that. You could do whatever color you want. Is you just go over the bottom layer, layer 1, Control J, and then edit and fill that. And so you can fill that with whatever color. You can fill it with a color.
Don't know, might be.
You could fill it with white
I'll
if you
come
want,
out of it.
and that give you your white background. So that's just there at the bottom there, the layer.
I was going to say, don't forget, you can use another photograph as a background,
Yeah,
but it's can't be sort of dominant. It's got to be it's got to be muted, but you can have something like a photograph, clouds, or if you were doing birds or something like that.
yeah. You can have like we showed with the examples, wasn't it, last week? Can you see?
Yeah.
1 minute, just a sec.
There was triptychs there.
Can you see that or not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those were the examples where, see, you've not got a plain background, you've got all the numbers
Yeah, I would have thought that would have been
or something
pretty
like that.
dominant with the numbers, but the others are,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, there you go. That's what Gary was on about. So you've got three photos. They're different sizes, and then it's got a background. See what they've used for the background? Some kind of Russian dolls, I think.
Yeah, they're Russian dolls, aren't they?
In the theme. So that is sort of just a template I've thrown together. If you want, I'll send it out. If you want to use it, it's entirely up to you. It's just the choices, how you want it. I've got some instructions with it. I'll send just to show you. Yeah, just to tell you how to use it. But that'll give you, give you something just to pull your photos in. But like John says, you can just open up a blank document and drag 3 pictures into it and size them yourself. It's entirely up to you. I think it's down to you what you do, how you do it, how you produce it. I think that's what probably the judge will be looking for, is something that somebody's used that's a little bit different.
I'm going to leave you, Pete, because I've got to take Kerry's camera back.
Yeah, okay, mate, no problem. We're just about to finish anyway.
Yeah. Be about 20 minutes, Kerry.
Okay.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye.
Yeah, bye, Bob.
Bye.
Good night, Bob.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night, Bob.
Good night.
Yeah, no, Bob. I was just going to say, when you're drawing the rectangles, you can do view show grid to display a grid on top of the image, and somewhere in the settings you can snap to a grid and set the grid resolution. So it's much easier sizing the rectangles and getting even borders if you've got a grid and a snap.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got anything they want? Any questions? All good.
Deathly silence.
Yeah, deathly silence.
Is a triptych thing happening next week?
No, next week is Roy's going to do a presentation. He's got a presentation he's put together, and the triptych closes Monday week, which is the 9th.
No, Monday.
Sorry, not Monday week.
Coming.
Next Monday. with a third today, haven't we? So next Monday it closes, and then it will be marked on the 17th. We've got Maria, the external judge, will be doing the marking. Well, it'll be a case of first, second, and third. So try and get your entries in as soon as you can. You got up to the end of Monday to get them in by.
Peter,
yeah.
Do you want the title of the 3 pictures on the pictures, or do you want it as we normally do?
Do it as you normally do it.
Okay.
Don't stick them on the picture.
Okay.
I was going to say on the flick. Sorry, go ahead, Pete.
I was just going to say, obviously, each each frame of 3 pictures will only have one title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Terry,
was
I've
just
got-
concerned the Flickr site's got something about the exhibition or something or other, I noticed.
Yeah, yes, just we've put together the photos. We've entered 8 pictures into the exhibition, and what I'll do is I will get those. I've got to check what's on Flickr because I put those
There's
on
more
there
than- There's
for.
more than 8.
Yes, I was just going to say I've put those on there for Gary and Colin to look at, and I'll go through and change that to the 8 that were chosen and have gone into the exhibition, and I'll let you know the details as soon as I get them of when the exhibition will be online, because obviously it's normally in the library in Salisbury for the month of January, but it's been cancelled. But it will be online, and it'll be judged the same, but instead of having PDI and print, it's just PDI this year. So we've gone through, or Gary's gone through and picked out 8 pictures, and myself and Colin have just checked that he hasn't put all of his in, basically. I mean, he's only allowed 2 each, but he does use different names. All of a sudden we end up with 4 new members I've never heard of. Okay, so I'll get that.
Let's tell the truth and say that we've got one from 8 different members. So.
We have. What we did, we went through what Sue Dunham marked for the trophy, and we went through and selected, and we decided that we'd have 8 different photographers, because the standard is so high now that we used to be struggling to get 8 pictures because you're only allowed to put a maximum of 2 per person in. But this year we put 8 different people's photos in, which is great. So that spreads it about, and they, I think in Gary's opinion, they're the 8 best ones for the job. So I'll get those. I'll get that sorted on the Flickr so that it's got the actual 8 that we put in. I put the shortlist on there so that Colin and Gary could access it. All right then.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody wants
No.
to have? Thanks again, Keith, for tonight. It was really good. That's really
That
interesting.
was excellent.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Keith.
I'm
Can I
gonna.
just ask you one thing?
Yes.
Triptychs, I'm assuming they all have to be new photos, not photos that have been entered before. Or can we use our library?
You can use your library.
We can. Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Now I'll have to get a library.
yeah. I appreciate for some photographers like yourself, Trudy, that probably have only taken 1 good photo all year. It's a struggle.
I'm still waiting for the one good photo.
Now I've seen some of those at New Forest. They're all right. Obviously, without stating the obvious, the 3 pictures have got to be related in some way.
Okay. And you don't want 3 the same.
Well,
Yeah, red, blue, and green.
yeah. If you think it's good enough that it looks good with 3 the same, then put it in.
Okay. Thanks, Peter.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll send that out as soon as. And then if you want to use it, you can use it.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Night,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Terry.
Oh, yeah. Gone.